Hello, I'm Emma Rendle. I am talking to you today as the team lead on a ADB project in Pakistan. The project's called the Sindh Coastal Resilience Project, where we're upscaling nature-based solutions and applying traditional engineering techniques as well to improve the resilience in the Indus Delta. In my presentation, I'll be providing an overview of the pressures and threats impacting Sindh in Pakistan, the intervention options our project is suggesting, and the strategic action plan and adaptation management. The project basically aims to move from an unobserved and unmanaged situation to one that is well managed. So the question about how resilient Sindh will be in the future will be supported by this vision and change in the approach to managing that coastline. And we have working visions for the future, but one might be a sustainable future where healthy ecosystems support and are supported by a thriving local community and a vibrant economy. So the Indus Delta is the situation we're looking at. So in Sindh is the state within Pakistan. Our area really covers from Hyderabad south. There is a barrage on the Indus River at Kotri, and from Kotri south through to the delta system itself is our study site. The main towns of Thatta and Baisin are also included. The pressures in Sindh are complex, and these combination of issues from reduced flow through to poor sediment supply, a reduction in sediment transport, severe coastal erosion and saline intrusion has created waterlogging and horrendous flooding actually. It's high exposure to wind waves, energy, and the combined impact of sea level rise makes the future look quite complicated. This project's about teasing out those individual pressures and threats and understanding them better. They are highly vulnerable, and this is an incredibly low-lying area of the world, and it's exposed regularly to flooding, as we've mentioned, and cyclone activity. The people mostly are working livelihoods are agriculture and fisheries. There's chicken farming, fishing here, and various collections of fodder for the animals. Of the 17 creeks that are in the Indus Delta, only 2 of them are active. This means that there's been a decrease in fresh water supply and a decrease in sediment supply also, which has created this eroding areas of land. The decrease in fresh water supply to the mangrove forest has actually created an incredibly hypersaline environment in some situations, and has reduced that mangrove cover to a near zero in some areas, enhancing erosion further. Floodwater control needs rethinking and managed for the present day as much as for the future predictions under climate change. Monsoon, flash flooding, breaches, regular breaches, urban flooding due to drainage, and coastal flooding from storm surge or tsunami. This combined problem in this low-lying area is creating a severe issue for people to live and to work and carry out their normal business in this area. The lower discharge from Kotri Barrage, which is the last barrage along the Indus, has reduced sediment and freshwater inputs. Much of the coastal region is low-lying with low gradient sea level rise risk. Saline intrusion has been is a dramatic problem, and it's driven by similar factors that have rendered significant agricultural lands unusable. At this remote location, Karachi is the only gauge that we have in the local area, so that's demonstrating a 2 millimetre per year rise in sea level. The altimetry data from 93 to 2019 demonstrates a slightly increased rate at 2.8 millimetres per year. Using the IPCC's fifth assessment, we are using a sea level rise with the extreme scenario of RCP 8.5 as a higher end scenario, business as usual, which is 98 centimetres, so around a metre for 100 years. Previously, this approach has been utilised to project that rise in sea level and where it will inundate land. The image before you is a 1 metre inundation, and that fits quite nicely with the 98 centimetres over the next 100 years. This cross section is being drawn just to demonstrate the implications of sea level rise and saline intrusion. We need to get rid of water off the land if we've got heavy, severe flooding issues, but equally we need to protect from the rising sea levels, and those rising sea levels allow energy to impact the shoreline at a greater extent with the rising water level, and that bed sediment is highly erodable. Without a protective buffer that will march that sea level shoreline inland and increasing gradients over time. This is a really low-lying delta system, the increase of 1 metre over 18 kilometres. The sediment erosion increases with the sea level rise, and this is causing ever lower gradients, and combined with water pumping, advances in saline intrusion as well. So the combination of these water pumping activities that are occurring on land for water pumping the groundwater is actually enhancing that problem. 3 themes for coastal interventions are under the heading Strategic Action Planning, which encompasses strategic policy planning, monitoring, regulatory aspects plus the capacity building. Ecosystem restoration through adaptation, so working with nature-based principles, and this will be broadening the buffer zone. And resilient coastal infrastructure, so mitigation, so the more traditional engineering infrastructure which will be combined with nature-based solutions. The Sindh Strategic Action Plan is looking to present a decision-making pathway, so utilising the best practice guidelines drawn from the evidence base and disaster risk reduction, disaster management, general climate change policies and practices, drawing that together with the traditional structural engineering approaches and presenting a step-by-step approach by which we follow as the water levels rise into the future. This will now allow appropriate decision making for when to adapt and when to retreat. Importantly, in adaptive management, we're looking at where is it safe where people can build, where they can live, where they can adapt their livelihoods or continue their livelihoods. We use a combined modelling and mapping techniques to understand the observed and remote data and to inform planning and engineering of the delta in the future. And we focus for development at key nodal townships and retreat beyond the reach of rising sea levels. These nodal points will be considered for different type approaches and increasing the levels of the land also. Indicatively, the project interventions are going to be a large-scale mangrove plantation programme, embankments and bunds to improve the flood management schemes and linking roads, restoration of natural waterways and lagoons, coastal zone measurement and monitoring, and integrated coastal zone management, shoreline management planning. The Irrigation Department will be responsible for restoration of the waterways and lagoons, embankments for containing floodwater, river and ocean flood management schemes at townships, and linking roads and culverts for improving the connectivity. Ideas and influence will be drawn from previous tidal flood schemes, including managed realignment schemes for flood and coastal risk reduction. Habitat creation and restoration improvements will also be noted. Improvements through the channels, slowing the water down with leaky dams, utilising weirs and management of areas of diverse vegetation and trees, plantations. Undoing engineering designs and poor choices where roads cross old river systems, and reopening and reactivating old river systems will be a central part of this project. Opening options for freshwater storage, improvements to natural nature reserves, and the RAMSAR designated wetland sites will also be a priority. Sindh Irrigation Drainage Authority have already provided a good idea of where we can carry out these activities, including identifying small canals and river restoration areas. Places where there's flat topography or where there's depressions in topography could be utilised for storage of water. And this is a heavy left bank focus because of the flooding activities. However, both sides of the River Indus we will be looking to include these restoration activities. Culverts are essential for water connectivity restoration and a key infrastructure. Presently, the roads cut off the water supply to the mangrove restoration project. This needs to be reintroduced, that connectivity needs to be reintroduced, and those old river systems reopened. Forestry are already undertaking a huge mangrove plantation program. This is simply a scale up of their activities. They have a nursery and a community are well versed in the importance of the mangrove. Mangrove has been lost throughout the southern aspect of the delta and the left bank. The right bank has the older forest is present and quite dense, and the idea is to improve the density, so you would see the red areas in this picture across the face of the delta. The Indus reforestation activities rely on ranges. There are already 8 ranges in the wider delta system, and we would be looking to fund a number of other ranges within the delta system based at key hotspots throughout the system, black dots there on this diagram. So as we go from our green, orange, red zones, which will be our flood risk management zones, we are also improving the buffer zone and potentially reducing the red zone and widening the green zone. So the squeeze is less. The ranges are critical in the plan for this approach, and they will control the workers who are paid directly in their communities and in per household. So in summary, the Sindh Coastal Resilience Project focuses on the building blocks for enabling development. It uses traditional levee embankment approaches for flood risk management, but draws upon the principles of adaptive management also. Nature-based solutions are presented for improving the buffer zone and stabilising and securing a well-managed ecosystem. So restoration, connection and protection is our focus. Thank you for listening. Please do email me if you have any questions.